Give me 6 months, not 10 years, not your whole life. Just 6 months of absolute focus, and I'll give you a version of yourself you won't even recognize. Most people waste 6 months without noticing. They drift, they hesitate, they start and stop, and because of that, nothing ever changes. But 6 months of clarity, 6 months of discipline, 6 months of relentless execution can put you years ahead of everyone else. This is not motivation. This is not hype. This is a system, a 6-month success plan designed to force growth, eliminate weakness, and turn execution into your default setting. If you're willing to commit not halfway, not when you feel like it, but fully, the next 6 months will be the most powerful months of your life. And once you see what you're capable of, you will never go back. If the next 6 months are going to change your life, this is where it begins. Not with motivation, not with a new habit, not with a plan. It begins with radical responsibility. Most people want a better life, but they don't want full ownership of the life they have. They blame timing. They blame circumstances. They blame their past, their environment, their upbringing, or the people around them. And as long as they do that, nothing changes. Because the moment you blame something outside of yourself, you give your power away. Here is the truth most people avoid. Your current life is the result of your past decisions, not your intentions, not your potential, your decisions. That's not an insult. That's freedom. Because if your decisions brought you here, better decisions can take you somewhere else. Winners understand this early. They do not waste energy complaining about what happened. They do not replay the past looking for someone to blame. They ask one question instead: what am I going to do next? Radical responsibility means this: everything that improves from here forward is on you. Your habits, your discipline, your focus, your execution. If something isn't working in your life, it is your responsibility to fix it. Not someday, not when it feels comfortable. Now, most people resist this idea because it feels heavy, but in reality, it is the most empowering decision you will ever make. Because the moment you say, "This is my responsibility," you stop waiting, you stop drifting, you stop hoping things will magically improve, and you start operating. This 6-month plan will not work for people who want excuses. It only works for people who want results. So here is the first rule: no more blaming, no more explaining, no more justifying. Your past does not get to vote on your future. What happened before today may explain where you are, but it does not control where you are going unless you let it. From this point forward, every result is feedback. If you fall behind, you don't complain, you adjust. If something is difficult, you don't avoid it, you face it. If progress is slow, you don't quit, you increase precision. This is how high performers think. They treat life like a system, not a drama. Emotion does not lead. Decision does. Radical responsibility also means refusing to lie to yourself. No more pretending you're doing everything you can. No more saying, "I tried," when you know you didn't execute fully. Honesty creates leverage. When you tell the truth about your effort, your habits, your discipline, you gain the ability to change them. This is why most people never transform. They protect their ego instead of their future. But for the next 6 months, ego is off the table. Only progress matters. You will measure your days by execution, not intention. You will judge yourself by consistency, not motivation. And this is where the shift happens. Because when you take radical responsibility, you stop asking life for permission. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You move, and movement creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates identity. This is why this chapter matters so much. If you skip responsibility, everything else collapses. But if you lock this in, if you fully accept that you are the operator now, the next 6 months will not be random. They will be deliberate. And deliberate time always changes lives. This is the line in the sand. From here on out, no one is coming to save you. And that is exactly why you're about to become unstoppable. If responsibility is the foundation, clarity is the blueprint. You cannot execute what you cannot see. Most people say they want success, but they cannot define it. They say they want to do better, to improve, to change their life. Those words feel good, but they are useless. Vague goals create vague lives, and vague lives never transform. If the next 6 months are going to matter, you must eliminate all ambiguity, because clarity removes hesitation. Clarity creates direction. Clarity turns effort into progress. This is why month 1 is not about speed, it's about precision. Before you move fast, you must know where you are going. Here is the rule: if your goal cannot be measured, it cannot be executed. So you will define success in numbers, behaviors, and standards. Not someday, not eventually. 6 months from now, ask yourself honestly, where do I want to be? In 6 months, physically stronger by how much? Leaner by how much? Faster by how much? Where do I want to be financially? Income, savings, skill-based earning power. Where do I want to be mentally and emotionally? More focused, more disciplined, less reactive. Where do I want to be in identity? Who must I become for this life to exist? If you can't answer these questions clearly, you are not ready to execute yet, because execution without clarity is just busy movement. And busy movement is how people exhaust themselves without changing anything. Once your 6-month outcomes are clear, you break them down, not into dreams, into non-negotiables, daily actions, weekly standards, monthly checkpoints. This is where most people fail. They set goals, but they never decide what must happen every day. Winners don't rely on willpower. They rely on structure. They decide in advance what winning days look like. Training is not optional. Focus time is not optional. Learning is not optional. Execution is not optional. These actions are scheduled, protected, and enforced. No debate. No negotiation. Because the moment you allow flexibility around your core actions, emotion takes control, and emotion always chooses comfort. Non-negotiable goals remove emotion from the process. They say this happens whether I feel like it or not. That single decision changes everything. Now, here is the truth most people avoid. You don't fail because your goals are too big. You fail because they are too unclear. Clarity creates urgency. Urgency creates action. When your target is clear, your mind stops wandering. You wake up knowing exactly what matters today. That focus compounds. And this is why month 1 is so powerful. Most people rush past this step. They want action immediately. But action without clarity creates burnout. Clarity without action creates stagnation. Month 1 balances both. You define the destination. Then you lock in the daily standards that take you there. By the end of this month, you are no longer guessing. You are no longer experimenting. You are operating with intention. And once clarity is established, the next phase becomes inevitable. Because when you know exactly what you are building, distractions lose their power. And the next 6 months stop feeling overwhelming, they start feeling executable. This is how transformation begins. Not with motivation, with clarity that leaves no room for excuses. Now that your goals are clear, there is one question that determines everything. Where is your time actually going? Because time is the currency of transformation. You can have the best goals in the world, the strongest intentions, the clearest vision, but if you do not control your time, someone else will. And when someone else controls your time, your life becomes reactive instead of intentional. This is why most people stay stuck. They don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because their days are unstructured. They wake up and immediately react. Messages, notifications, other people's priorities, before they even begin their day. Their focus is already fragmented, and fragmented focus produces fragmented results. Month 1-2 is about eliminating this weakness completely. You are no longer allowed to see how the day goes. You decide in advance how the day will go. Here is the rule: every hour must serve your mission. That does not mean every hour is intense. It means every hour is intentional. There is no neutral time. Everything either moves you forward or pulls you backward. So the first step is brutal honesty. You audit your time. Not what you think you do, what you actually do. For 7 days. You track everything. When you wake up, when you train, when you work, when you waste time. This is uncomfortable for most people because it exposes the truth. Not that they lack time, but that they leak it. Distractions feel harmless in isolation. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, but compounded daily. They steal weeks and months. And this is why 6 months pass for most people without any real change. You will not let that happen. Once the audit is complete, you design your schedule like a weapon. You block time for deep work. You block time for training. You block time for learning. You block time for recovery. And here is the key: what gets scheduled gets protected. If it's not on your calendar, it does not exist. High performers do not rely on memory. They rely on systems. They remove choice from important actions, so energy is preserved for execution. You will wake up at the same time every day. You will start your mornings with intention. You will eliminate decision fatigue before noon, because mornings determine momentum. When your day begins in chaos, it never recovers. This is also where boundaries become non-negotiable. You stop being available to everything. Not every call deserves an answer. Not every message deserves a response. Not every invitation deserves a yes. This is not selfish. This is disciplined. If your time is not protected, your goals are theoretical, and theory does not transform lives. Month 1-2 requires you to become ruthless with low-value activities. Scrolling, mindless entertainment, busy work that looks productive but changes nothing. You cut them without apology, because here is the truth: you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your daily structure. Once your time is controlled, something powerful happens. Your mind calms down. Focus increases. Energy stabilizes. Progress accelerates. What used to take weeks starts happening in days. Not because you are working harder, but because you are working with precision. This is how momentum begins. Not with intensity, with structure. And once time is under control, the next phase becomes possible. Because discipline is useless if it has nowhere to land. Now, your discipline has a framework, and framework turns effort into results. At this point, most people quit, not because they lack ability, not because the plan doesn't work. They quit because emotion takes over. The excitement fades. The resistance appears. The mind starts negotiating. This is hard. I'll do it later. I deserve a break. And that's where progress dies. Month 2 exists for one reason: to permanently break the habit of emotional decision-making, because success is not built on how you feel. It is built on what you do despite how you feel. Here is the truth that separates winners from everyone else. Your emotions do not deserve a vote in execution. Most people let feelings run their lives. They act when they're motivated and stop when motivation disappears. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Discipline stays. Discipline is the bridge between goals and results. And month 2 is where you build it. This means one thing above all else: you stop negotiating with yourself. No more. Do I feel like it? No more. Just this once. No more internal debate. Debate is weakness disguised as logic. Winners decide once, then execute automatically. Training happens because it's scheduled. Work happens because it's required. Focus happens because it's non-negotiable, not because it feels good. This is uncomfortable at first. Your mind will resist. Old habits will fight back. You will feel tired, bored, unmotivated, and doubtful. That is not a sign to stop. That is a sign you are rewiring your identity. Because discipline is not built in comfort. It is built in resistance. Every time you act when you don't feel like it, you gain leverage over yourself. Every time you follow through, you build self-trust. And self-trust is more powerful than confidence. Confidence depends on outcomes. Self-trust depends on consistency. This is also where people misunderstand discipline. They think it means punishment. It doesn't. Discipline is self-respect in action. When you keep promises to yourself, your standards rise. When standards rise, identity changes. And when identity changes, behavior becomes effortless. Month 2 is about making action automatic. You don't hype yourself up. You don't wait for inspiration. You execute like a machine. Because machines don't argue. They perform. This is also where motion creates emotion. Most people wait to feel good before acting. Winners act first, then the feeling follows. Action reduces anxiety. Action dissolves doubt. Action builds momentum. By the end of month 2, something shifts. You stop relying on mood. You stop seeking motivation. You move because movement is who you are now. And that is a dangerous place to be in the best way. Because once discipline is stronger than emotion, nothing can slow you down. Not fatigue, not fear, not resistance. You have crossed the line. From here on, you are no longer trying to change. You are operating under a new rule: execution first, feelings later. And with that rule in place, the next phase becomes inevitable, because now you are capable of handling pressure, standards, and speed. And that is when real acceleration begins. Discipline will get you moving, but standards determine how far you go. Most people fail not because they don't work hard, but because they accept levels that are far too low. They show up, but not fully. They try, but not intensely. They do enough, but never demand excellence. And what you tolerate becomes your reality. Month 3 exists to eliminate this weakness, because once discipline is in place, you must raise the bar or progress plateaus. Here is the truth elite performers live by. You do not rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. Standards are the invisible rules you enforce when no one is watching. They determine how hard you push, how focused you stay, how quickly you correct mistakes, and how seriously you take yourself. Most people have goals that sound impressive, but standards that are painfully average. That contradiction destroys momentum. Month 3 forces alignment. You no longer ask, "Did I do the task?" You ask, "Did I do it at the highest level possible?" This is not about perfection. It is about refusal to settle. If you train with intent. If you work with precision. If you learn to apply. No more autopilot. This is also where growth becomes uncomfortable, because raising standards exposes gaps. Weakness shows itself. Excuses get louder. Fatigue increases. That is not a problem. That is proof you are leveling up. Growth only happens under pressure. If you are not uncomfortable, you are not evolving. Most people avoid this phase. They mistake discomfort for danger. But elite performers chase discomfort because they understand something most never will. Pressure reveals potential. Month 3 is where you deliberately push past previous limits. If you used to stop at good enough, you go further. If you used to train until it was tolerable, you train until it stretches you. If you used to work until it felt complete, you work until it's sharp. This is how identity upgrades. You are no longer the person who tries. You are the person who demands, and this demand is internal, not external. You stop waiting for accountability. You hold yourself to it. This is also where excuses die, because excuses cannot survive under high standards. They collapse under scrutiny. You see them for what they are, weak agreements you made with your comfort, and you revoke them. Month 3 also introduces self-evaluation. At the end of each day, you ask one question: did I operate at my highest standard today, not compared to others? Compared to your potential. If the answer is no, you correct it immediately. No guilt, no drama, just adjustment. This is how winners compound progress. They don't chase motivation. They enforce standards. By the end of month 3, something fundamental changes. Average feels uncomfortable. Low effort feels insulting. Drifting feels impossible. You have raised your internal floor. And once the floor rises, everything above it rises too. This is why standards matter more than goals. Goals point forward. Standards pull you upward. And now, with discipline locked in and standards elevated, you are ready for the next phase, building a mind that cannot be shaken. Because high standards demand high mental strength. And that is where true dominance begins. By month 4, your body is disciplined. Your time is controlled. Your standards are high. Now comes the real test. Because success is never defeated by effort, it is defeated by a weak mind. Most people don't quit because they can't do the work. They quit because their thoughts turn against them. Doubt creeps in. Fear whispers. Pressure builds. And instead of standing firm, they collapse inward. Month 4 exists to eliminate this failure point. This is where you build an unbreakable mind. A mind that does not panic under pressure. A mind that does not retreat when challenged. A mind that keeps moving forward no matter what appears. Here is the truth. Your mind will try to stop you long before your body ever will. Your body can endure far more than you think. It is your thoughts that give up first. So this month, you stop being a passive observer of your thoughts and become their commander. You no longer entertain weakness. You don't negotiate with fear. You don't debate doubt. You don't indulge hesitation. You shut it down. This does not mean pretending fear doesn't exist. It means refusing to let it lead. Fear is information, not instruction. Elite performers understand this. They feel fear, then act anyway. They feel uncertainty, then execute regardless. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is movement in spite of it. Month 4 trains you to respond, not react. When something goes wrong, you don't spiral. You assess. You adjust. You continue. No emotional drama. No internal collapse. Just forward motion. This is also where you become ruthless about mental input. Your mind is a battlefield. What you allow in determines what comes out. So, you eliminate mental poison, negative people, constant news, meaningless noise, endless scrolling. If it weakens your focus, it does not belong in your life. Instead, you feed your mind with strength, principles, strategy, discipline. Examples of people who execute under pressure. You train your inner dialogue the same way you train your body. You replace I hope with I will. I'll try with I execute. What if I fail with I'll adapt and continue? Words matter. They shape perception. Perception shapes behavior. Behavior shapes outcomes. This is also where you deliberately seek difficulty. You stop avoiding hard things. You move toward them. Difficult conversations, challenging tasks, situations that stretch your confidence. Because resistance builds strength. The mind grows the same way muscle does under load. Every time you push through discomfort, your tolerance expands. What used to feel overwhelming becomes manageable. What used to intimidate you becomes familiar, and familiarity breeds control. By the end of month 4, you no longer fear pressure. You expect it. You no longer question your ability to endure. You trust it. And that trust changes everything. Because once your mind is strong, setbacks lose their power. Failure becomes feedback. Obstacles become training. Resistance becomes confirmation. You stop asking, can I handle this? And start saying, this is what growth feels like. That shift marks a turning point. From here on, you are not trying to succeed. You are built to endure. And endurance is what makes success inevitable. Now, with an unbreakable mind in place, the next phase becomes unavoidable speed, execution, and momentum at a level most people never reach. By month 5, you are no longer preparing. You are operating. Discipline is automatic. Standards are high. Your mind is strong. Now the game changes. Because once structure and mindset are locked in, speed becomes your advantage. Most people lose not because they are incapable, but because they move too slowly. They overthink. They wait. They analyze while others act. And while they are still deciding, opportunities pass them by. Month 5 exists to eliminate hesitation completely. This is where execution becomes relentless. Here is the truth. Speed multiplies effort. Fast execution creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence accelerates results. This is why high performers move differently. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They act with what they have. They adjust in motion. Because action clarifies what thinking never will. Most people think confidence comes first. It doesn't. Confidence is a byproduct of movement. The more you act, the less fear has room to exist. Fear thrives in stillness. Momentum destroys it. Month 5 trains you to move before doubt finishes speaking. You stop asking, "Am I ready?" You ask, "What's the next action?" Then you take it immediately. This also means shortening the gap between decision and action. No delays. No later today. No tomorrow. If something needs to be done, it gets done. This speed compounds. Small wins stack faster. Feedback loops tighten. Learning accelerates, while others are still planning their next move. You are already adjusting from execution. This is how separation happens. Month 5 also requires intensity, not frantic activity-focused output. You do fewer things, but you do them harder, faster, and better. No scattered energy, no busy work disguised as progress. Everything moves the needle. You measure effort by results, not hours. Because hours do not build success, impact does. This is also where momentum becomes addictive. Once you experience consistent forward movement, you no longer tolerate stagnation. Slow days feel uncomfortable. Hesitation feels unnatural. You crave progress, and that craving keeps you moving. This is why most people never experience momentum. They never stay consistent long enough. But you are past that point. Month 5 is also about decisiveness. You trust your judgment, not because you are always right, but because you know you can adapt. You stop fearing mistakes. Mistakes are information. They guide refinement, and refinement increases speed. This mindset removes perfectionism. Perfectionism is just fear, pretending to be high standards. You don't need perfect. You need forward. By the end of month 5, your life feels different. Not emotionally, structurally. You move with purpose. You act without hesitation. You recover quickly from setbacks. Others begin to notice. They call it confidence. They call it discipline. They call it luck. But you know the truth. It's momentum. And momentum is dangerous because once it starts, it is very hard to stop. Now there is only one thing left. To make this transformation permanent, to ensure there is no return to the old self. That happens in the final month where identity is locked in, and the new version of you becomes the default. Month 6 is not about doing more. It is about becoming permanent. Up to this point, you have been building structure, discipline, standards, and momentum. Now comes the most important phase of all locking in your new identity. Because the truth is simple. If identity does not change, results will eventually fade. Most people experience temporary improvement. They work hard for a while, see progress, then relax. And slowly, they drift back to who they were. Month 6 exists to make sure that never happens. This is where you stop seeing yourself as someone trying to improve and start operating as someone who expects excellence. Identity is what you do automatically. It is how you act when no one is watching. It is what you return to under pressure. And identity always wins. You don't rise to goals long term. You fall back to identity. So in month 6, everything becomes about reinforcement. You no longer ask, "Can I do this?" You ask, "Is this who I am now?" Your routines are no longer tools. They are standards. Your discipline is no longer effort. It is behavior. Your execution is no longer forced. It is default. This is how transformation becomes irreversible. Month 6 requires you to consciously reject your old identity. Not emotionally, structurally. You remove environments that pull you backward. You cut habits that belong to the old version of you. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your growth, because explanation is often permission to retreat. You also begin to expect more from yourself automatically. If something is sloppy, you fix it. If effort is low, you increase it. If focus slips, you correct it immediately. Not with guilt, with authority. This is who you are now. This is also where self-talk changes permanently. You no longer say, "I'm trying to stay disciplined." You say, "I don't live any other way." That language matters because the subconscious listens to repetition, not intention. Month 6 is repetition with authority. You also begin to see the long game clearly. You no longer ask, "Is this worth it?" You already know the answer. Because your results are no longer hypothetical. You can see the difference. You can feel the strength. You can trust your execution. And once you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with life. You move differently. You decide faster. You recover quicker. This is what others sense when they say, "Something about you changed." They're right. Your identity has shifted. And here is the most important rule of month 6. Never go back to zero. Progress can slow. Intensity can vary. But standards never drop. You do not abandon structure. You do not abandon discipline. You do not abandon execution. Those are no longer tools. They are who you are. By the end of month 6, the question is no longer, "Can I transform my life?" The question becomes, "How far do I want to take this?" Because once identity is locked in, success is no longer something you chase. It is something that continues. And the person you are now becoming will never accept the old life again. There is no going back, only forward. With control, with clarity, and with authority. There is a point in every transformation where most people disappear. Not at the beginning, not when it's exciting, but right before it works. This moment usually comes around day 60 to day 90. And if you don't understand it, it will erase everything you've built. Here's what happens. In the first 30 days, motivation is high. You feel different. You're proud of yourself. Momentum is obvious. In the next 30 days, discipline takes over. You're working harder. Results are forming, but quietly. Then comes the danger zone. Progress slows. The excitement fades. The newness disappears. And your mind starts asking dangerous questions. Is this really worth it? Why isn't more changing? Yet I'm doing everything right. Why does it feel normal again? This is where 97% of people quit. Not because the plan failed, but because expectations were wrong. They confuse silence with failure. They think if progress isn't dramatic, it must not be happening. That's a lie. What's really happening at day 90 is something far more important. Identity is rewiring. And identity change is quiet. The body adapts first. The habits lock in second. The identity shifts last. That final shift takes time. Most people quit because they want validation before identity is complete. They want proof too early. But the truth is, this breakthrough always comes after boredom, after repetition, after consistency, after showing up when it feels ordinary. This is why day 90 is sacred. It's the moment when success stops feeling exciting and starts feeling normal. And normal is dangerous if you don't understand what it means. Because normal is not stagnation. Normal is integration. It means the habits are embedding, the standards are stabilizing. The new version of you is taking over. But the ego doesn't like this phase. The ego wants excitement. It wants recognition. It wants confirmation. So it whispers, "You've done enough. You deserve a break. You can ease up now." And the moment you ease up, momentum leaks. This is where you must become ruthless, not aggressive, not emotional, consistent. You do not change the plan. You do not seek something new. You do not chase novelty. You stay the course. Because the people who win are not the most intense, they are the most patient. They understand that boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the system is working. This is also where trust in yourself matters. At day 90, you stop trusting feelings and start trusting structure. You stop asking, "How do I feel today?" and start asking, "What does the system require?" Then you execute. This is the separation point. On one side, people who drift back to comfort. On the other, people who cross into inevitability, because if you push through day 90, something irreversible happens. You no longer need motivation. You no longer need reminders. You operate. And once operation replaces effort, success is no longer a possibility. It's a timeline. This chapter exists to save you from the most common failure point on earth. Remember this. If it feels boring, if it feels quiet, if it feels like nothing is happening, you are closer than you think. Do not quit here. This is where lives change. Everything you've heard so far means nothing without this moment. Because transformation does not happen in knowledge. It happens in decision. Right now, there are two paths in front of you. One path is familiar, comfortable, safe. It sounds like this: "I'll take some of this and see how it goes. I'll try my best. I'll stay consistent when life allows." That path leads exactly where you are now. The other path is rare. It is uncomfortable, demanding, non-negotiable. It sounds like this: "For the next 6 months, I am all in. No excuse. No drifting. No half effort. I will execute whether I feel like it or not." That path changes everything. This is why this chapter exists. Because 6 months only work if they are decided in advance. Not daily. Not emotionally. Not based on mood. Once, right now. You must decide who you are for the next 6 months. Not what you hope to do. Not what you want to try. Who you are. Are you someone who negotiates with resistance, or someone who moves through it? Are you someone who needs motivation, or someone who operates on standards? Are you someone who starts strong, or someone who finishes? This is the truth most people never face. 6 months of extreme focus can put you years ahead. But 6 months of half commitment change nothing. There is no middle ground. This is a one-way door. Once you commit at this level, you will see things you cannot unsee. You will feel strength you cannot forget. You will develop self-trust that cannot be taken from you. And once that happens, going back becomes impossible. This decision also removes fear, because when the decision is final, doubt loses leverage. You no longer ask, "What if this doesn't work?" you ask, "How do I execute better?" You stop waiting for reassurance. You stop looking for permission. You move, and movement rewrites identity. From this moment forward, you are not someone trying to change. You are someone under construction. Every day becomes a brick. Every action becomes proof. And 6 months from now, you will not be wondering if you changed. You will be living in the evidence. This is the line. On one side, the life you've been tolerating. On the other, the life you've been postponing. Choose once. Execute daily. And do not look back. Because when the 6 months are over, the world may not recognize you, but you will. And that is when the real journey begins. 6 months from today. Time will have passed whether you change or not. That part is guaranteed. The only question is this: will you be stronger, more disciplined, more focused, more in control, or will you be explaining why nothing changed again? This plan does not require luck. It does not require talent. It does not require perfect conditions. It requires one thing: decision backed by daily execution. If you protect your time, remove excuses, execute when it's hard, and refuse to drift, 6 months will compress years of growth into your life. You won't need motivation. You won't need reminders. You won't need permission. You will have self-trust, and once you trust yourself, nothing can stop you. This is not the end of a video. This is the start of a contract with yourself. If you are committing to the next 6 months, come on, I'm all in. Save this video and listen to it again when discipline feels heavy. Because this message isn't for hype days, it's for the days when quitting feels easier. Subscribe if you're building discipline. Is structure and long-term success, not quick motivation. And remember this: you don't need more time. You don't need better circumstances. You need 6 months of relentless execution. Start now. Protect the streak. And don't break the contract. Your future self is watching.